David Park woke up to the sound of metal hitting metal. The wake-up call. Same sound every morning for the past 6 months. He opened his eyes and stared at the gray ceiling above him. Another day in hell. He pushed himself off the thin mattress and stood up. His back hurt. His knees hurt. Everything hurt these days. He was only 32 years old, but he felt like an old man. That's what happened when he worked 16 hours a day in the ore processors. Around him, other men were waking up too. 50 humans in one room. 50 beds pushed together like sardines in a can. The smell was bad. The food was worse. But they were alive. That was more than many could say. David walked to the small window and looked outside. Stars. Endless stars. And beyond them, somewhere far away, Earth. Home. A place he would probably never see again. Relay Station Gamma 7 used to be a human mining outpost. David had worked here as a combat medic for the military crew. It was a good job. Safe. Boring. Even. Then the Veth came. The war lasted 3 months. 3 months of fire and death and screaming. The Veth were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They stood 7 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in hard shells, like insects. They had 4 arms and eyes that glowed red in the dark. They did not talk. They clicked. And they did not show mercy. Earth sent ships to fight. The Veth destroyed them. Earth sent more ships. The Veth destroyed those too. In the end, Earth had no choice. They surrendered. And stations like Gamma 7 became occupied territory. David remembered the day the Veth soldiers walked through the doors. He remembered the screams. He remembered watching his friends die. He remembered hiding in a storage closet for 3 days, drinking recycled water and eating protein bars until the Veth finally found him. They didn't kill him. He wished they had. Instead, they put him to work. The Veth needed workers for their mines. Human hands were small and useful. Human bodies were cheap and easy to replace. So the survivors became slaves. David finished getting dressed and walked to the door. A Veth guard stood outside. It looked at him with those glowing red eyes. It clicked something in its language. David didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Move. Work. Now. He walked through the station's long hallways. Everything looked different now. The Veth had changed things. Strange symbols covered the walls. Machines he didn't recognize hummed in the corners. The air smelled different too. Sharp and bitter, like burned metal. Other humans walked beside him. Nobody talked. Talking was dangerous. The Veth didn't like noise. They especially didn't like humans talking to each other. Too many prisoners had disappeared after being caught whispering. David reached the ore processing center and took his position. His job was simple. Rocks came in on one side. He sorted them. The valuable ones went to the left. The worthless ones went to the right. He did this for 16 hours every day. His hands were covered in cuts and bruises. His fingers had lost most of their feeling. But today felt different. There was tension in the air. The other workers kept looking at each other. Quick glances. Secret signals. Something was happening. Something David didn't know about. He focused on his work and tried to ignore it. Getting involved in things was dangerous. He had learned that lesson the hard way. 3 months ago, a man named Robert tried to start a fight with a guard. Robert was dead now. So were the 10 humans the Veth killed as punishment. The hours passed slowly. David's back screamed in pain. His stomach growled with hunger. The Veth fed them once a day. A gray paste that tasted like nothing. It kept him alive. Barely. During his short break, David sat in the corner and closed his eyes. He thought about Emily, his wife. She had beautiful brown eyes and a laugh that could fill a room. He thought about Grace, his daughter. She was only 4 years old. She loved butterflies and chocolate ice cream and bedtime stories. They were both dead now, killed in the first attack. David wasn't there when it happened. He was here, on this station, a million miles away. He didn't even get to say goodbye. Sometimes he wondered why he kept going, why he woke up every morning, why he ate the gray paste and did the work and followed the rules. What was the point? But then he remembered something his father used to say. Survival is its own kind of victory. His father had been a soldier. He knew about hard times. He knew about not giving up. So David didn't give up. Not yet. After the break ended, David went back to work. The strange tension was still there. The other workers were nervous. Something was definitely wrong. Then he saw her. A small figure, moving through the processing center. At first, David thought it was a human child. But then he looked closer. The hard shell, the 4 arms, the clicking sounds. It was a Veth child, a young one, maybe the equivalent of a human 6-year-old. David had never seen a Veth child before. He didn't even know they had children. To him, the Veth were just monsters, killers. But here was this small creature, wandering through the station like she was lost. She was looking around with big eyes. Not red like the adults. Hers were orange, almost golden. She clicked softly as she walked, touching things with her small hands. Where were her parents? Where were the guards? A Veth child alone in a human work area was strange. Very strange. David watched as the child walked toward a back hallway, a restricted area, a place where humans weren't allowed to go. But David had heard whispers about that area. Dark whispers. Some of the workers had been planning something. Something violent. Something desperate. And now this child was walking right toward it. David felt his heart beat faster. This wasn't his problem. The Veth had killed his wife, his daughter, his friends. Why should he care about one of their children? But something in his chest felt tight, something that wouldn't let him look away. The child disappeared into the hallway, and David, against every instinct telling him to stay still, followed her. David moved quietly through the hallway. He stayed close to the walls. His heart was beating so loud he was sure someone could hear it. What was he doing? This was stupid. This was dangerous. But he kept walking anyway. The hallway was dark. The lights here were broken. Or maybe someone had broken them on purpose. David could hear sounds up ahead. Voices. Human voices. And something else. A small clicking sound. The child. He reached a corner and stopped. He pressed his back against the wall and looked around the edge. What he saw made his blood turn cold. 5 men stood in a circle. David recognized some of them. Workers from the processing center. In the middle of the circle was the Veth child. She was sitting on the ground, her small arms wrapped around herself. She was making scared clicking sounds. Like a baby crying. One of the men was holding a metal pipe. David recognized him too. Marcus Cole. He was a big man with angry eyes. His wife and son had died in the invasion. He hated the Veth more than anyone on the station. Look at this, Marcus said. A little bug, walking right into our hands. Marcus, I don't know about this, another man said. His name was Tyler. He looked nervous. She's just a kid. She's not a kid, Marcus said. She's a thing. A monster. Just like the rest of them. He pointed the pipe at the child. Do you know who her mother is? Commander Thyra, the one who runs this whole station. The one who decides if we live or die. The child clicked louder. She was shaking now. Her orange eyes were wet with tears. Did the Veth cry? David had never thought about it before. We kill this thing. We send a message, Marcus continued. We show them they can't just take everything from us. We show them we still have power. But the punishment, Tyler said. They'll kill us all. They'll kill everyone. Then we die fighting, Marcus said. Better than dying as slaves. David felt sick. He understood Marcus's pain. He really did. The Veth had taken everything from all of them. But this, killing a child? This wasn't fighting. This was murder. He thought about Grace, his daughter. She was around the same age as this Veth child when she died. She was innocent. She didn't choose the war. She didn't choose anything. She was just a child, and so was this little creature sitting on the floor, crying in fear. Before David could think about what he was doing, his legs started moving. He walked around the corner and into the room. The men turned to look at him. Marcus's eyes went narrow. Park, Marcus said. What are you doing here? I was about to ask you the same thing, David said. His voice was shaking, but he forced himself to keep talking. You can't do this, Marcus. Can't do what? Take revenge? Make them feel what we feel? She's a child. She's a Veth. She's a child, David repeated. He took a step closer. Look at her. She's scared. She's crying. Does that look like a monster to you? Marcus laughed. It was not a happy sound. You've gone soft, Park. The bugs killed your wife and kid, and you're standing here defending one of them? The words hit David like a punch. He felt his hands shake. But he didn't move. I'm not defending the Veth, he said. I'm defending a child. There's a difference. There's no difference. They're all the same. David looked at the child. She was staring at him now. Those orange eyes were full of fear. But there was something else, too. Something like hope. Like she knew he was trying to help her. I'm not going to let you do this, David said. Marcus stepped forward. The metal pipe was still in his hand. And how are you going to stop us? David didn't answer. He just moved. He put himself between Marcus and the child. He stood there, arms at his sides, looking into Marcus's angry eyes. You'll have to go through me first, David said. For a long moment, nobody moved. The silence was thick and heavy. Then Marcus smiled. It was a cold smile. A cruel smile. Fine, he said. If that's what you want. The first hit came fast. The pipe struck David's ribs. He heard something crack. Pain exploded through his body. He fell to one knee but didn't move away from the child. Stay down, Park, Marcus said. Don't be stupid. David stood back up. Blood was in his mouth. His ribs were definitely broken. But he didn't move. The second hit was to his back. The third to his legs. David fell again. The pain was everywhere now. He couldn't see straight. He couldn't breathe right. But still, he didn't move. Why? Marcus shouted. Why are you doing this? For a bug? David coughed up blood. He looked at Marcus with eyes that were starting to swell shut. Because if we kill children, we become the monsters. Marcus raised the pipe again. His face was red with rage. He was going to kill David, right here, right now. But then the lights came on, bright and blinding, and the room filled with clicking sounds. Veth guards. A lot of them dumped. Marcus froze. The other men froze. Everyone knew what was about to happen. The guards moved in. They grabbed Marcus and the others. Tyler was screaming. One man tried to run. He didn't get far. The Veth were fast and strong and showed no mercy. David lay on the floor, broken and bleeding. The child crawled over to him. She touched his face with her small hand. She clicked something soft, something that almost sounded like, "Thank you." Then the darkness came. And David didn't see anything else when he woke up. He was in a cell, alone. The pain was still there, but someone had wrapped his ribs. Someone had cleaned the blood from his face. He didn't know how long he lay there in the dark. Hours. Days. It all felt the same. Then the door opened, and a tall Veth walked in. This one was different from the guards. She wore fine armor with gold markings. Her eyes glowed a deeper red. She moved with power and control. David knew who she was without being told. Commander Thyra, the child's mother. She looked down at him with eyes that held no warmth, no kindness, only cold, calculating intelligence. "You saved my daughter," she said. Her voice was strange, metallic, but he could understand the words. "Tell me why." David looked up at the commander. His whole body hurt. Every breath felt like fire in his chest. But her question hung in the air, waiting for an answer. "Tell me why," she said again. Her voice was cold and sharp like a knife. David tried to sit up. He failed. So he just lay there, looking at the ceiling, and spoke. "She's just a kid," he said. His voice was rough and weak. "Kids don't choose their parents. Kids don't start wars." Thyra stood perfectly still. Her red eyes studied him like he was some kind of strange animal. She didn't believe him. He could see it in her face. "You are human," she said. "Humans hate us. You especially should hate us. My soldiers killed your family. I saw your file. A wife, a daughter, both dead because of my kind. And yet you protected my child. Why?" David closed his eyes. The memory of Emily and Grace came flooding back. The pain of losing them was worse than any beating. "Because I know what it feels like," he said softly. "To lose a child. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. Not even you." Thyra made a clicking sound. David didn't know what it meant. She turned and walked to the door. "You are lying," she said without looking back. "All humans lie. I will find the truth." She left, and the door closed behind her. David was alone again in the dark. The next day, they came for him. 2 guards dragged him out of the cell and took him to a white room. There were machines everywhere. Tubes and wires and things David didn't recognize. They strapped him to a chair. A Veth scientist walked in. He had tools in his hands. Sharp tools. "We will find the truth," the scientist said. "Your mind will tell us everything." What followed was the worst experience of David's life. They put something in his head. Something that made him see things, remember things, feel things. Every memory, every thought, every secret was pulled out of him like thread from a cloth. He saw Emily again. Her smile. Her voice. The way she laughed at his bad jokes. He saw Grace. Her tiny hands. Her happy eyes. The butterfly drawing she made for him on his birthday. And then he saw him die. Over and over again. The bombs. The fire. The end of everything he loved. David screamed. He cried. He begged them to stop. But the Veth didn't stop. They kept pulling at his mind, searching for something. Looking for the lie they were sure was there. But there was no lie. There was only truth. A broken man who couldn't watch a child die, no matter whose child it was. Finally, the machine stopped. The scientist looked at his readings with confusion. "Impossible," he said. "There is no plan. No trick. He simply did it because he wanted to." Thyra was watching through a window. David could see her standing there, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. They took him back to his cell. This time, they gave him a blanket and some real food. Not the gray paste. Actual food. David was too tired to wonder why. He ate, and then he slept for a very long time. When he woke up, something strange was happening. There was a sound outside his cell door. A small clicking sound, soft and gentle. David crawled to the door and looked through the small window. There she was, the child, Nira. She was sitting on the floor outside his cell, clicking quietly. In her hands, she held something. Food. Small pieces of bread and fruit. She pushed them through the gap under the door. David stared at the food. Then he stared at the child. Why? He asked. Nira clicked something. He didn't understand the words. But then she did something that surprised him. She pointed at him, then at herself. Then she made a gesture. She put her small hands over her chest, like she was protecting something. She was thanking him. In her own way, she was saying that she understood what he did. David felt something crack in his chest. Not his ribs this time. Something else. Something he thought had died with his family. He took the food and ate it slowly. Nira watched him through the window. When he was done, she clicked happily and ran away. This became their routine. Every day, Nira would come to his cell. She would bring food. Sometimes she would just sit there and click at him. David started learning the sounds. The clicks had meaning. They were words. Slowly, he began to understand. Nira told him about her life, about her home world, about her mother who was always busy and always serious. She told him about her father, who died in the war, killed by humans. David should have felt guilty, but he didn't, because he saw something in Nira's eyes. Not hate, not anger, just sadness. The same sadness he felt when he thought about Grace. Children were children, no matter what planet they came from. One day, Thyra came to his cell again. She stood in the doorway and watched him for a long time. "My daughter speaks of you," she said finally. "She calls you a word in our language. It means something like shield father, one who protects." David didn't know what to say. "In our culture," Thyra continued, "when someone saves a life, a debt is created. A bond. My daughter has bonded to you. This is unusual. This has never happened between our kinds before. What does that mean?" David asked. Thyra's eyes flickered. For just a moment, David saw something behind the coldness. Something that looked almost like confusion. "I do not know," she admitted. "But I cannot ignore it. Our laws are clear. A life that is sacred, even between enemies." She turned to leave, then stopped. "The men who tried to hurt my daughter," she said, "they have been executed. But you will not be. Not yet. I need to think about what to do with you." She left. And David was alone again, with more questions than answers. But for the first time in 6 months, he felt something other than pain and despair. He felt hope. Small and fragile, like a tiny flame in the dark. But it was there, and that was something. Things changed after that day. David was moved from his cold cell to a small room in the officers' section of the station. It wasn't freedom. Guards still watched him. He couldn't leave without permission. But it was better than before. Much better. The room had a real bed with soft blankets. It had a window that looked out at the stars. It had a bathroom with hot water. These small things felt like treasures to David. He had forgotten what comfort felt like. Nira visited him every day. She would run into his room, clicking happily, and sit on the floor near his feet. She would talk to him for hours in her strange clicking language. David understood more and more each day. She told him about Veth games and Veth songs. She told him about her favorite food, which was a purple fruit that tasted like honey. She told him about her pet, a small creature that looked like a mix between a cat and a lizard. She missed it. It was back on their home world. David found himself smiling when she talked. It hurt to smile. His face was still healing from the beating, but he couldn't help it. There was something pure about Nira, something innocent. She didn't see him as a human or an enemy. She just saw him as the person who protected her. One evening, Thyra came to his room. She didn't bring guards this time. She came alone. She stood in the doorway, watching him with those red eyes. "May I come in?" she asked. David was surprised by the question. The Veth didn't ask permission for anything. They just took what they wanted. "Yes," he said. Thyra walked in and sat on a chair across from him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Thyra did something strange. She sighed. It was a very human sound. "I have questions," she said. "About your kind. Will you answer them?" David nodded. "Why do humans fight so hard?" Thyra asked. "We are stronger than you. Our weapons are better. Our ships are faster. You knew you could not win. Yet you kept fighting. Why?" David thought about it for a moment. "Because giving up is worse than dying," he said. "When you fight, you still have hope. When you give up, you have nothing." Thyra clicked softly. She was thinking. "We do not understand hope," she said. "In our culture, if you cannot win, you surrender. You save your strength for another day. Your way seems wasteful." "Maybe," David said. "But hope is what makes us human. Without it, we're just animals." Thyra asked more questions after that. She wanted to know about human families, about human love, about human children. David told her about Emily, how they met at a coffee shop on Earth, how she spilled her drink on his shirt, and he fell in love with her right there. How they got married in a small church with flowers everywhere. He told her about Grace, how she was born on a rainy Tuesday, how she cried so loud that the nurses laughed, how she took her first steps in their tiny apartment, falling into his arms. As he talked, David felt tears on his cheeks. He didn't try to hide them. There was no point. Thyra watched him cry. Her face was hard to read, but David thought he saw something change in her eyes. "We also love our children," she said quietly. "We also feel pain when they are taken from us." David looked at her. "Your husband?" Thyra's eyes flickered. "My mate, yes. He was killed by human soldiers. A surprise attack on one of our ships. He died quickly. I am told he felt no pain." She paused. "I do not know if that is true." "I'm sorry," David said. Thyra made a clicking sound. "Why? You did not kill him. And even if you had, you would say sorry." "Yes," David said. "Because I know what it feels like. Losing someone you love." Thyra stared at him for a long time. Then she stood up and walked to the door. "You are a strange creature," she said. "I came here hating your kind. Now I am not sure what I feel." She left without saying goodbye. Days passed. Then weeks. David's life became something he never expected. Thyra visited him often. They talked about their worlds, their cultures, their lives. They were not friends. Not exactly. But they were not enemies either. And Ira continued to call him Shield Father. Other Veth on the station began to notice. David saw the looks they gave him. Some were confused. Some were angry. A human being treated with respect? It was unheard of. One day, a group of Veth officers came to the station. They wore fancy armor with many medals. They were important people from the Dominion government. David watched them from his window. They walked with power and pride. They looked at everything with cold, judging eyes. That night, Thyra came to his room. She looked worried. It was the first time David had seen her show fear. "There is a problem," she said. "The Dominion Council has heard about you. About what happened. They are not happy. What do they want?" David asked. Thyra sat down heavily. "They want me to execute you, publicly, to show that the Veth are still in control. That humans are still beneath us." David felt cold. He had known this might happen. Deep down, he always knew. A story like this couldn't have a happy ending. Not in this universe. And what do you want? He asked. Thyra looked at him. Her red eyes were full of something he couldn't name. I do not know, she admitted. My daughter loves you. She would be destroyed if you died. And I... She stopped and clicked softly. I have begun to see you as something other than an enemy. But you'll do it anyway, David said. It wasn't a question. Thyra didn't answer. She just sat there, staring at the floor. Finally, she stood up and walked to the door. The execution is scheduled for tomorrow, she said. I am sorry. She left, and David was alone with his thoughts. He thought about Emily and Grace. He thought about Nira and her happy clicks. He thought about all the choices that had brought him to this moment, and he realized something. He wasn't afraid. He had saved a child. He had shown that humans could be kind even to their enemies. That was worth something. That was worth everything. Tomorrow, he would die. But tonight, he could sleep in peace. The morning came too fast. David woke up to the sound of guards outside his door. His heart was beating hard, but his mind was calm. He had made peace with what was coming. They took him to the main hall of the station. It was a huge room with high ceilings and cold metal walls. Hundreds of people were gathered there. Veth soldiers stood in neat lines, their armor shining under the bright lights. Human prisoners stood on the other side, chained together, forced to watch. In the center of the room was a platform. David knew what it was. An execution stage. He had seen it used before. Quick and clean. The Veth didn't believe in suffering. They just believed in death. The Dominion officers stood at the front, watching with cold eyes. They wanted this. They needed this. A human who had been shown kindness. A human who had been elevated above his place. That was dangerous. That had to be stopped. The guards pushed David onto the platform. He stumbled, but didn't fall. He stood straight and looked out at the crowd. The human prisoners stared at him with mixed feelings. Some looked sad. Some looked angry. Some looked like they didn't care anymore. David understood all of them. One of the Dominion officers stepped forward. He was tall, even for a Veth. His armor was covered in gold symbols. His eyes burned with cold fire. This human, he announced, has committed crimes against the Dominion. He has corrupted the mind of a Veth child. He has caused confusion and weakness in our ranks. The punishment is death. David didn't react. He just stood there, waiting. Then a voice cut through the silence. Stop. Everyone turned. Thyra walked through the crowd. Her daughter Nira was holding her hand. The little girl's orange eyes were red from crying. She had been crying all night. Thyra reached the platform and stepped up beside David. The Dominion officer looked at her with anger. Commander Thyra, he said, you are not supposed to be here. This matter has been decided. This matter is not finished, Thyra said. Her voice was strong and clear. I have something to say. You have no right. I have every right. Thyra turned to face the crowd. All eyes were on her, Veth and human alike. This man saved my daughter. Not for reward. Not for power. Not for any reason except that he could not watch a child die. Even the child of his enemy. She paused. The room was completely silent. Our laws speak of life debts. When someone saves a life, a bond is created. A sacred bond that cannot be broken. This man has bound himself to my daughter. And by our ancient traditions, that means he is bound to my house. The Dominion officer made an angry clicking sound. You cannot be serious. He is human. He is property. He is nothing. He is not nothing, Thyra said. He is more than many of our own kind. He showed mercy when he had no reason to. He chose pain over hatred. He chose to protect life, even at the cost of his own. Can you say the same? Can any of you say the same? She reached up and removed something from her armor. A small golden symbol. David recognized it. He had seen it on Nira's clothing. It was a family mark, a sign of belonging. Thura walked to David. She looked into his eyes for a long moment. Then she pressed the golden symbol onto his chest. By the ancient laws of our people, she said loudly, I declare this man to be bound kin to House Thyra. He is no longer property. He is no longer a prisoner. He is family. The room exploded with noise. Veth officers shouted in anger. Human prisoners gasped in shock. The Dominion representatives looked like they might attack right there. Nira ran up the platform and threw her small arms around David's legs. She was clicking rapidly, saying "Shield Father" over and over again. David didn't know what to feel. This was impossible. This was madness. But it was happening. Right here. Right now. The head Dominion officer stepped forward. His face was twisted with rage. This is treason, he snarled. You are betraying your own kind. For what? For a human? This will mean war within our own people. Is that what you want? Thyra stood tall. She didn't back down. What I want, she said, is to show that we are more than conquerors, more than killers. This man taught me something. He taught me that strength is not just about winning battles. It is about choosing what is right when it costs you everything. She looked at David, then at her daughter, then back at the officer. If our people cannot understand that, she said, then perhaps our people need to change. The Dominion officers were silent. They looked at each other with dark expressions. Finally, the head officer spoke. This is not over, he said. The council will hear of this. There will be consequences. Let them come, Thyra said. I will be waiting. The officers turned and walked away. The room slowly emptied. Guards escorted the human prisoners back to their areas. But something was different now. David could see it in their eyes. Hope, small and fragile, but real. Later that night, David sat in his room. Nira was asleep on his bed, her small arms wrapped around a pillow. Thyra stood at the window, looking out at the stars. Why did you do it? David asked. You risked everything. Your position, your life. For me, Thyra was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. Because my daughter loves you, she said. Because I have started to see you as something more than an enemy. Because you showed me that hatred is not the only way. She turned to look at him. When you protected Nira, you planted a seed of something new, something that could grow into peace, or at least understanding. I could not let that seed die. David nodded slowly. He looked at the sleeping child on his bed. Then he looked at the golden symbol on his chest. What happens now? He asked. I do not know, Thyra admitted. The future is uncertain. There will be challenges, enemies, pain, but we will face them together. David smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Thyra walked over and sat beside him. For a while, they just sat in silence, watching the stars. Then Nira woke up. She yawned and stretched and looked at David with sleepy eyes. Teach me a human game, she said. You promised. David laughed. It was the first real laugh he had made in months. Okay, he said. Do you know rock, paper, scissors? Nira shook her head. David showed her how to play. She wasn't very good at first. She kept forgetting which hand sign meant what. But she laughed every time she lost. And after a while, she started winning. Thyra watched them play. And for the first time, she smiled too. The war wasn't over. The occupation continued. Humans were still prisoners, and the Veth were still conquerors. Nothing had changed in the big picture, But here, in this small room, something new had begun. A human and a Veth child playing games. A commander learning that enemies could become family. A seed of hope growing in the darkness. David looked out at the stars and thought about Emily and Grace. He missed them. He would always miss them. But he knew they would be proud of him. He had taken a beating for his enemy's child. And in doing so, he had changed everything. That was the human way. That was what made them strong. Not weapons. Not ships. Not technology. Compassion. Even for enemies. And that was something the universe had never seen before.